end of time.
O'clock.
What's up, folks? It's Wednesday night.
Me and Jay were talking about how awesome that intro is.
Every time, like, I'm patting myself on the back. Good work, Jenny. Good work. Well, I said, the old one, I didn't mind the old one, but the thing about the old one was that I had to use just kind of like free video clips that I could find, so you just kind of had to use what you found.
Yeah.
But I actually pay nowadays because I do like so many more videos. I decided I was going to break down and buy a Storyblocks subscription, which is not cheap. It's like $300 a year. But they have really, really good video clips of pretty much everything. And you can use them in all of your projects. So so I can get like access to better stuff. You know what I mean? You got to pay for good stuff sometimes because the free shit doesn't always. What is that noise?
What is this shit gonna be doing?
I heard that noise earlier and I was like, what the fuck is that?
Oh shit! Now we're hearing ourselves talk.
Oh my god.
Okay.
You've got all kind of problems.
It should be it. It's giving me fucking notification sounds. I didn't ask for any of that.
It just does it. It just does it. My phone does random shit too.
Yeah.
Like just, hey, this noise is on now. And
Yeah,
it's
somebody
like,
said
all right.
something about you on Instagram. And you're like, I don't give a shit. I'm fucking streaming.
The thing about my phone
Yeah.
is that you can either, I swear to God, like when I want to do something on it, like I sit there, poke at it, and it won't do anything. But then
Yeah.
other times I breathe on it, and it
Yeah.
does all kind of crazy shit. I don't
know.
really know. It's all kind of like, I don't know.
Let's see who's in there.
Murder Hornet said new intro. Well, we did a new intro.
Couple weeks back.
Well,
About
yeah.
a month,
When did we
maybe.
start it? Like around New Year's, right?
Around New Year's.
Yeah, we did. So it's been like
Been a while.
a couple of months anyway. But yeah, I'm just every time I see it, like every week, I'm like, man, that came out really good. I was like really proud of myself.
Yeah.
Because I'm not like a master video editor or anything like that. I just kind of can cobble things together,
It's going to be an interesting show today.
I thought so too.
Yeah. Do you have any shout outs or anything to anybody?
We have
do?
a
Okay.
new patron named Die, I think, or Day, D-A-E.
Day.
Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, thank you very much, new $10 patron.
Thank you, Day.
So that's our newest one in a while. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome. So yeah, Gramther says, question, between mannequins and Barbarellas, how many randos hit on Sophie over the weekend? No, but I don't think anybody hit on her at Barbarella because that's not the kind of crowd it
they
is.
had a couple guys schmooze with her.
Yeah.
But that's not hitting the same thing.
That's not really the same thing.
Yeah. They're all fishing, though.
Well, yeah.
Well, you guys fucking went back and go back and look. Fucking, they were grabbing Jenny's ass. Had to slap one dude right.
That was mannequins. That was.
Yeah, the mannequins.
Barbarella was a lot more fun.
And then, other dude, just fucking tried to get in on him, and I was just backed him up like that, and fucking had to whip his ass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a whole
It's
thing.
funny. I had a superhero day today. I went to go see my friend Dan. He's my fucking muscle porn star, fucking drug dealer. No, I'm just kidding. But
Dan the drug dealer.
Yeah, I get my medication from him. You know what I mean? And he's like, I told him that deal. He goes, oh yeah, that's gonna happen all the time. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? He goes, yeah, you can wade through 3 or 4 guys if they're not working out or they're not on anything. It's like fighting kids. It's like fighting little kids or something. And I was like, so it's just people who are working out and fucking doing steroids and shit. He's like, yeah, that's the only ones you have to worry about. And people with guns. That's all he said. But it's just fucking funny, man. It's a life-changing event. How easy it is. But no, just that night, that was not a normal night for mannequins. That was a particularly bad night for creeps. And evidently it had been getting kind of that way steadily the past few weeks, evidently. But we may not go back there.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. A lot of people are going just because of that. Yeah, so
Because
it's
of
not just us.
that kind of thing.
That kind of dude, yeah.
Yeah, they're like too many.
They're just thirsty and fucking don't know how to act in a club. They don't have any club culture. dude bros, and they're not really sure where they are and don't know how to act and no game,
Ben said, and I guess this is in reaction to what you said about this is going to be an interesting show. He said, "Oh, good, sick of the boring shows."
yeah. Those fucking boring shows.
I mean, I like to think most
Sick
of
of
our
them
shows
too,
are
man.
interesting.
Yeah.
But I've been wanting to, like I said, I've been wanting to do this topic for a while, and it finally won the poll. But because I only found out about this probably like a year or two ago.
Yeah.
And it always makes me really sad, like when somebody who did something awesome or like something kind of like world changing got fucked over. And this guy really got fucked over. He not only got fucked over, but he disappeared and nobody knows where he is. Well, he's clearly dead now because it was like 19th century. But I'm glad that it's it's the same thing. Do you know, like many, many years ago, did you learn about Nikola Tesla at school? Like
No.
when you were a kid?
Not
See,
from the teachers.
I don't think I did either. But over the years, people have actually, realized Tesla's contributions to the culture as a whole.
You learned about Edison.
And now, and that's kind of what I want to talk about here, because Thomas Edison's ass might be involved in this as well. I don't know, I don't really know how I stand on it. If you know the story, you kind of know where I'm going with it. But Thomas Edison, I remember being in school, but just elementary school, junior high, and stuff like that, and talking about how fucking awesome Thomas Edison was. He invented this, he invented that, he invented the other thing. And then when you get a little bit older, and now I kind of feel like this knowledge is seeping into the culture as a whole, Thomas Edison, kind of a shit. Didn't really invent a lot of things per se, as stealing other people's ideas, doing shady shit with patent law. Just screwing people over, essentially, not really having any scruples or ethics about that kind of thing. Yeah. And, he fucked over a lot of people. And a lot of people that invented things, died penniless.
Yeah.
Because, because of shit that he did.
Yeah.
And that's basically where we're at with this story. I don't know, like I said, if Thomas Edison was involved in what happened to Louis Le Prince or not. But I will say that Thomas Edison probably stood to gain the most from him vanishing. I will say that. But that doesn't mean that he had anything to do with it. I wouldn't put it past the fucker, that's for sure. But I don't know. We'll get into that. I mean, it may be something completely different. It may be something completely random. We'll get into because there's a couple different theories about what might have happened to him. But we'll kind of get into that. Trey said, "Oh shit, I just realized who the show is about. Technically, he filmed the first moving picture." That indeed he did. Even though now I kind of wonder if anybody has kids that are school age, are they still teaching them that Thomas Edison invented all that shit, like the movie camera and stuff? Because he absolutely did not.
No. He had a company that just fucking absorbed everybody and made them fucking discover shit. Some of the shit he just fucking bought or stole. Yeah. He had a good legal team.
He did, and he had a thing too where he was real good at manipulating, patent law. Like I said, that he could, and he had money and resources and stuff, so he could always kind of ooh, if this person had a good idea that he wanted to swipe, then he could kind of file his own patent or be oh, well, this patent is for this little slightly different thing and it's not like yours, and then he could just bury the dude. He did that kind of shit. Yeah. He didn't, I don't even know if he did anything technically illegal, but it was for sure unethical, a lot of stuff that he did.
Yeah.
But like I said, I don't know if Thomas Edison was involved in this case or not.
Yeah, whether he killed somebody, we don't know.
But a lot of, and I
really wouldn't have been his style to kill somebody. I don't think there wasn't a pattern to that.
Well, he might have had it done.
Possible, but there wasn't a pattern of it.
That's true.
Usually there's a pattern. If a person did it once, they do it more than once, and there's a pattern. Yeah. Usually, but then again, that's the usual. The usual culprits are political people, not so much corporate. So, although I bet you a lot of corporate shit happened, and it's just that nobody was notable in history, so their deaths were not really recorded or noticed. Right. In politics, you'd notice it.
Ben said it was standard business practice at the time to crush your opposition with lawyers and gangsters. Pretty much.
Yeah, that was the game back then.
So I kind of feel like it's not far-fetched that Thomas Edison had something done. But I don't know if that's true. But it wouldn't, if I found out that it was true, I don't think anyone's going to know nowadays because it's been such a long time. But it's I absolutely would not be shocked at all. Just to know that he, Yeah, Ben said, of course Edison didn't kill anyone. He had people on the payroll for that. Yeah, he wouldn't do it himself. He definitely wouldn't have done that.
I'm just thinking if he'd had somebody killed, he would have done it more than once, and I think there would have been a pattern.
Well, maybe there was.
Yeah,
And maybe he
maybe
was
we
just
don't
that
know.
good, and
Yeah.
he got... Because he was a smart dude. Nobody's saying that. So if he got people killed...
He was a ruthless businessman.
Mhm.
I'm not going to put murder on him, murder for hire. But he was ruthless.
I'm not... Well, he's dead now. What's he
Yeah,
going to do?
yeah.
Sue me?
Well,
Okay.
yeah.
His ghost is going to come
Yeah.
haunt me and then sue me.
We're gonna see.
I'm getting sued by Thomas
I haven't
Edison's
heard-
ghost.
I haven't heard the evidence that Jenny is, or the supposed evidence that Jenny's dug up yet. Maybe if I hear the story, maybe I might change my mind. You might be.
Yeah,
serious
I mean, and
suspect.
this was, like I said, this was a long time ago, so it's kind of hard to, like, dig stuff up. There was a couple other videos about this on the internet, which are really good, on YouTube, rather, that are actually really good. But I think even BuzzFeed Unsolved did this one. But there's not a ton. There was only, like, 3 or 4 really good ones.
Edison was also bad about stamping down on fucking any kind of disruptive technologies too. He pretty much destroyed Tesla.
Yeah.
Tesla was going to make electricity and just kind of make it free. You could broadcast it.
Yeah.
And fucking Edison wasn't going to have that. You couldn't put a meter on that.
Yeah, he had no patience for people that invented things that they thought would be a public good. Because another guy, I can't remember who it was, but another guy that invented something really awesome was actually just going to, he didn't bother getting a patent on it because he said, oh, this is a public good and I should just, like, release it. And he was like, oh, no. And he filed a patent on it. And so the dude, like, died broke.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he would do shit like that, which, not cool, Edison.
You didn't file a patent? Well, I'm going to file a patent.
Yeah.
There you go.
I invented that shit.
Can't do it.
I'm going to take all your money.
Yeah.
And you're going to die in a gutter somewhere.
Yeah.
What a shithole. It's like, he's just kind of like, I don't know. That's just...
Dude didn't have game. He should have realized that would have happened. That he'd had the patent, but then he'd just give the license out for free. That's what he should have done. Because somebody else could just block him by getting the patent.
Yeah, and I mean, I think patent law was a lot different back then, too. Like, you could kind of...
You couldn't infringe on patent. And during that time, a lot of technologies were new. So anything that you made, you were infringing on somebody's patent somewhere in your invention. It was real rough. Firearms were like that. Like everybody knew how to make an automatic pistol. The problem was that Browning had that patent. The swing link patent had a lot of the fucking delayed recoil patents. So you had to find up a new way to make an automatic pistol. Well, there are only a couple different. There's only like 2 really good ways.
Right.
So anything that is not those 2 good ways, it's a not a good way. It'll still work, but mechanically, no, it's not efficient. So they're just trying to, and they did it just to evade patents. And it held back fucking firearm technology for decades, working out all these fucking patents. Now it's all lapsed. You can make anything now without worrying about patents. Everything's been done. And everything's been patented, and all the patents have expired, so you can do anything now.
Well, all of that stuff, yeah. Because after a while, like, your patent's only good for, like, so long.
Yeah, well, most of the ideas were patented, like, in the 1910s. So they're long
Right.
fucking lapsed, because they had enough engineering skills to understand all the different ways you could make that machine, or a machine gun. And they were fighting over little things. Like feed pawls, things, which is just something that pulls in a belt, Stupid shit. And magazines that are in the butt of the pistol, that kind of stuff. A button that you could press to drop a magazine. That shit was patented for a while.
Right.
Just,
Well, yeah, because anything, like, that would give you an advantage or, like, make you some money that no one else could use.
Right. So you'd see some crazy shit in the early 1900s where it was like one fantastic high-tech feature and the high-tech look to the gun, but everything else was fucking like antique and crazy and backwards because they couldn't do it because the patent infringements. They were trying to find new ways. That's why a lot of French pistols look so crazy. Because Fabrique Nationale was involved. They didn't have patents for things or did have patents for things, and they just came up with some crazy looking shit. But it all worked out eventually. The patents expired on everything.
I mean, obviously, I think the person that invented something should get the credit for it and should get the bulk of the money for it. But that doesn't always happen because of various legal loopholes and things like that, which is and that's kind of what ended up happening to Louis Le Prince, like I said. Ben said it was cornflakes all over again, right? Yeah, that was like a whole thing. Did we ever do a show about that? Didn't we do a show about the Kellogg brothers?
No, never did.
I thought we did, but
maybe we did a long time
I think it was like
ago,
a long time ago. But yeah, there was a great like story about that on The Food That Built America. I think it was like the first season or the second season, about the whole like invention of cornflakes and stuff. It's a fascinating fucking story. Maybe we did a show about it, because I kind of feel like we did a show about Kellogg, but about the health spa and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. I'm pretty familiar with that story, so I can't remember if we did a show or not. And then Ben said, yeah, but it was up to the patent holder to sue the infringer in court, and if they weren't rich and influential, they were at a huge disadvantage. Well, that's always the case, no matter what. I mean, if you're poor, you might as well just march yourself off to jail, because that's where you're going.
But Colton FN fucking had all the good patents for a long time. So then they had all the money. So they would sue you. They would.
Yeah. It's just kind of like, back in the day, I don't know if they still do this, but I remember hearing back in the 80s how, like, some little podunk daycare somewhere would, like, paint some Disney characters on the side of the daycare, and then Disney would come and sue them.
Yeah.
So they were like, fuck, we're going to paint Fred Flintstone on the side. Then Hanna-Barbera won't sue.
Evidently, all the old Disney characters are going to be forced out into fucking public domain soon. They've been re-upping the patents.
Yeah, I don't...
But evidently they're saying that's not legal. They said it's not long.
I'd be interested to talk to like a copyright type lawyer, because copyright law, and I know this is going to sound weird, but copyright law is like actually really interesting to me. And I'm always just kind of like, because I know that after, like a book or something like that is what the life of the author plus 100 years or something like that. But there are some different loopholes, I think, like where the surviving, like say, Bram Stoker's widow, who kind of sued the makers of Nosferatu because, they infringed on his patent because the story wasn't that old. But you can kind of like re-up the copyright. But I don't know what the parameters are of that, because I kind of felt like that after a century had passed or something like that, I don't know if you can actually just keep doing that like in perpetuity. That seems like it would be...
I heard that Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck and all those things should be public domain by now, because they're old enough, and they're doing something kind of sideways to keep the patents on them. But sometimes when you're talking about publishing type stuff, when dealing with Star Trek or Star Wars or anything, what matters in the patent is how it was drawn. So maybe like the real old versions of Mickey would be in public
like
domain.
Steamboat Willie Mickey.
Right. But some of the newer drawings of him might still be protected until they lapse too. So Disney could keep its identity by saying, "Oh yeah, that's the old Mickey. This is the real Mickey. This is the new Mickey. This is our Mickey. Okay, this is real Mickey."
Because some of those
be a different drawing of.
Because some of those old Disney characters looked completely different than they look nowadays.
And they didn't look that good.
They didn't. Well, like I said, it was like old animation. You know what I mean? Like Steamboat Willie. When the fuck did that come out?
A long time ago.
20 something? Maybe it was earlier than that.
It was over 100 years.
But yeah, it was like it's pretty fucked up looking. But everything looked fucked up back then.
Yeah.
All the cartoons and everything. They didn't.
I liked them anyway when I was a kid.
I did too.
Yeah.
But I remember
Alice the Goop.
I remember seeing, because I was more familiar with kind of like the 60s, 70s, or maybe like 50s, 60s, like Porky Pig cartoons. And then like sometimes every now and then they would show like one of the really old Porky Pig cartoons, and Porky Pig looked they made him a lot cuter. Like later on, he was just like he's kind of chubby, you know what I mean? Like Porky Pig. But back in like the old days, he looked like a big, disgusting, fat pig.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's
and
right.
I was like,
he looked like a man. He didn't look like a child.
It wasn't. So they made him like a lot cuter, which I kind of liked, because I was like, I don't know if I really like that like old character. That doesn't look too appealing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Tammy's here. Deborah Hockett. Hey guys, just got off work, made it. Curly Overheiser says YouTube notifications are horrible. I didn't know you were live. Yeah, we always do a live show on Wednesday night and Monday night too. Ben said there was a kid's headstone at a cemetery that had Spider-Man on it a year or two ago, and Marvel demanded they remove the image.
That's fucking ridiculous.
Ben said a lot of pop culture things are coming out of copyright, such as Superman, but it's the 1930s version without heat vision, kryptonite, etc. That's still copyrighted. Okay. Well, I mean, that makes sense. Yeah, Ben said Winnie the Pooh and Peter Pan are free and clear for anyone to use now. Yeah, that's why they just made a horror movie with Winnie the Pooh. Like, what the fuck was that thing called? I've heard it wasn't very good, but I kind of want to see it anyway. But yeah, that's why. Because Winnie the Pooh was like, yeah. So, yeah, you can't use the images previously used in books, movies, still under copyright. Yeah, but I kind of feel like if you went back to the original Winnie the Pooh books, I mean, those are more than 100 years old. Blood and Honey, yeah, that's what it's called.
You see, I would fucking game that system, though. What I would do is I'd make a restaurant with a 1920s or a 1930s black and white theme inside, the decor and everything, and it would be like the old fucking Steamboat Willie.
That would be cool. I would go there.
Yeah. So what you do is it's Mickey Mouse, but it's back in time. And if and that would work out. That'd be great.
You could make it you could do like a whole like old school like animation thing. That'd be pretty neat.
Yep. And make it
all
inside.
Black and white.
Black and white inside too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That would be really really
like
cool.
Like you're in a black and white movie.
Yeah. That would be really cool. They should do that. I kind of like the idea of like theme stuff like that, like just weird themes.
Yeah.
I've heard that they've started doing. I don't think there's any restaurants that do this, but I've heard that they've started doing Titanic dinner parties. You know what I mean? Like they feed because they know what the menu was like on the Titanic, like the night it sank, so they like give you that food and kind of make it like you're on the Titanic. I'm like, I don't know if I want to pretend like I'm on the Titanic. We all know how that happened.
I don't know if I want to eat old fashioned food.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I kind of looked at the menu and I'm like, that doesn't really sound all that good. A lot of it, I'm like, what even is that? It's like the 1920s. It was 100 years ago. I don't know what the fuck.
They didn't use spice. They thought black pepper was some shit, man. But it's hot. It's really. Yeah. No more black pepper, please.
So funny. That's so funny. But or like paprika or something like that, which like doesn't even like paprika doesn't even like register, to be honest. Crowley said my friend went to go see it. That's Blood and Honey, the horror Winnie the Pooh movie. He liked it because it was so bad. Yeah, I kind of like I just had the general impression that a lot of because I haven't because eventually I'll probably watch it. But I've just seen like the expressions on the faces of some of the channels that I watch, like on the thumbnails, and some are like, "What the fuck?" You know what I mean? So I'm just like, okay. Zach said, "Oh shit, I forgot. What's up, y'all?" Well, you didn't forget because you're here, and it's only like 20 minutes in, so you didn't miss much of anything. We
haven't really got into the subject.
Yeah, not really. I mean, we were kind of talking about Thomas Edison a little bit. We were talking about patent law a little bit, which all is kind of like relevant to this topic. And Zach might be interested in some of this stuff because it's film history. You know what I mean? So I guess we'll get into the story. Like I said, it's not super, super long. It's not super, super complicated. So, I guess we'll just kind of get into it and we'll do some discussion as we go on. So yeah, I kind of feel like, I don't know about nowadays, but I remember learning in school that the inventor of many things, but up to and including the movie camera, was Thomas Edison. With maybe an assist from, the Lumiere brothers, somebody like that. Now, the thing about this time period, and I'm talking like late 19th century, is that there were a lot of inventors. It was very much in the air, trying to figure out like the best way to do like a moving picture camera, because they had already invented kind of like optical illusion sort of toys. You know what I mean? Like they'd have those paper wheels with like pictures on, like a flicker book type of toy. So they knew the principle behind, if you take a bunch of pictures in sequence and flip them through really fast, it looks like they're moving. But they hadn't really been able to figure out exactly a way to film a moving image and like project it. You know what I'm saying? So we have people like Edward Muybridge, who very famously did the horse galloping thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where that's how they found out that like the horse had all 4 feet off the ground at the same time and stuff like that. So they kind of knew the principle behind it, and they were looking for the best way to make a moving picture camera. Now, so I kind of feel like Thomas Edison usually gets credited for inventing the moving picture. However, it's pretty, I don't know how well known it is nowadays, but they're pretty sure with 99.99% certainty that Louis Le Prince was actually the first man to make a motion picture with a motion picture camera. It was only a few seconds long. They still have it. It still exists. You can see it on YouTube. It's about a second, 2 seconds, something like that. And it's just like his family, like kind of just milling around in the yard, like it is at his in-laws' house or something like that. Because, you know, it was a big deal back then. It was like the first one.
Right.
And he made a couple. He actually made one of his son, Adolf, who was playing an accordion. And he made one that was a few seconds long, like off a bridge in Leeds in England. So, I mean, like I said, those films still exist. And they know that he made them much, like very, very much earlier than Thomas Edison and his whole thing. So nowadays, Louis Le Prince in film circles is generally known as the father of cinema, or the father of cinematography, because he is the first known person to have made a movie, or what they would call a movie. So let's talk a little bit about his background. So he was born in France in a place called Metz in 1841, and he actually came from a military family. His dad was a major of artillery. Now, interestingly, one of his dad's friends was the very famous Louis Daguerre, who invented the daguerreotype, which is the very, very early form of photography. It was prior to them, like, doing photos, or, making photos on paper, like having light-sensitive paper. They used to do them on, like, it was like a silver plate or copper plate or silver-copper combination or something like that. So that's what that was. Like, he invented that, the daguerreotype. So when he was a kid, when Louis Le Prince was a kid and was hanging out with Louis Daguerre, who was his father's friend, he got really interested in photography, and it would become something of a hobby, like, as the time went on. So later on, as he got a little bit older, he actually went to Paris and studied art there, and then he went to Leipzig in Germany and studied chemistry. So obviously those two things would kind of feed into his love of photography and movie making later on. So he's French, as I mentioned. In 1866, he actually moved to England. He had a friend named John Whitley, and John Whitley had a brass foundry. So Louis Le Prince went there to work for him, and he ended up marrying Whitley's sister, Elizabeth, who was also an artist. Now, the two of them, they actually opened up like an applied arts school. And one thing that they figured out how to do was how to take photographs and like put them on metal or on ceramic or something like that. So they started making like commemorative plates. Like that wasn't really a thing that had been done. Like people painted on them and shit, but they figured out a way how to make, like, put a photograph on like glass or ceramic or something like that. So they started selling all of these commemorative plates, like with Queen Victoria and shit like that on them, and the Prime Minister, whoever that was at the time. And so they actually got quite successful, because I think they were kind of the first ones to do that, to kind of have this shop where they were putting photographs on household items, which was kind of like a new thing. Now, in 1881, Louis went to the United States under the auspices of, like, working for his partner or whatever. Now, he actually ended up becoming a manager for this kind of artist group that would do these, like, panorama type things that, just exhibits that they would do around the country. Now, while he was kind of going around, he'd been interested in photography for a while, like I said, but he was also, like a lot of other inventors were at the time, like started to get interested in moving pictures, like what was the best way to go about that. So what he decided to do at first, now they still have his first camera that he invented that he actually patented in Europe. And it's this kind of big square, like wooden box, and it had 16 lenses, because he worked out that to make a movie look like, I mean, they didn't call it a movie then, but to make it look like from a Flickr book point of view, to make it look like natural movement instead of like a Flickr book, you needed 16 frames per second, he determined. So he's like, well, if I put 16 lenses in the camera and it shoots like 16 photographs like in very quick succession, and then you put those together, like, and actually the thing that he had in there was like paper. The film was paper. So that was the first, thing that he made. Now, there were a couple of problems with this, and maybe if you know anything about photography, you probably have figured out what they were. Because this had 16 lenses, it took pictures in quick succession, all right. But all of the pictures were from a slightly different position.
Yeah.
So when you put them all together, it looked okay, but it looked a little bit janky.
Yeah,
because it was kind of like, because it was kind of like that, because the pictures didn't line up. You know what I mean? So he wasn't super happy with that. So he's like, well, there has got to be a better way.
There is.
To do that.
One
Well,
lens.
yeah.
Move the film.
Well, that's what he eventually hit upon.
Right,
but that was just like his first. Like I said, he did have a patent on that one, like the 16, and they still have the prototype. It's in I think it's in a museum in England.
You got to kind of fail first before you can succeed, just like anything else. So shit. He got the very basics done.
Yeah.
16 frames.
And I mean, it did work.
But then it unveiled another problem. So he goes. So he knows now he's got to move in a different direction. You got to use one lens.
Yeah.
That's what that tells you. You got to take 16 pictures with one lens. How do you do that? You got to have a fucking moving film. Film's got to move. You got to have a flickering shutter that's opening and closing. You got to figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
Mechanically.
He did actually figure out how to do that.
Yep.
He did eventually figure out how to do that.
Yep.
It took him a few years, because this is over. Because when he first moved to, he first went to the U.S. in 1881, and he actually didn't go back to England, I don't think, until 1887. And by that time, he had kind of solved a lot of the problems, that, engendered by the 16 lens camera, and had figured out how to compile it just down to one lens. Now, I'm not entirely sure, because I watched a bunch of different documentaries about this and read a bunch of different things. I think because some of the sources said that he also figured out, because remember how I said in the 16 lens camera he was using paper film.
Yeah.
And I think prior to that they had used like a gelatin type thing. I think he was the first one to come up with celluloid. I could be wrong about that. But he determined that was going to be the best way to do it.
It's clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I could be wrong, but I think that this was 1887, 18 is right
Boy,
around
that'd
there.
have been high tech, babe.
Yeah.
Celluloid. Which maybe they used something like that in wrapping. Plastic wrapping around a box, maybe.
Yeah, I'm
Something
not
like
sure.
that.
I mean, celluloid obviously has a lot of industrial applications, but I'm not really sure what they were using it for at that point in time.
They were using it for something he knew about it.
Yeah.
It was some kind of clear paper that he knew about. Probably somebody was using it to wrap food. Inside
maybe.
And then put the food inside of a box and sell it. Sounds like something food industry would try to do. Or maybe put plastic wrapping on the outside of a box. And it probably wasn't good enough. It was probably like saran wrap. So you're going to have to change it so you can feed it through a mechanical camera and impregnate it with chemicals so you can get exposure. You can expose an image on it. So there's going to be a lot of challenges. But they must have been dealing with some kind of clear plastic paper.
Yeah,
Or
that's
he
kind
would
of
have known about it.
right. That's what I mean. I think that he was maybe the first one to figure that out, that would be the best application for that.
Yeah, because you could shine a light through it and project off of it.
Right.
All right.
Well, and that was his thing. I mean, he really wanted it. He envisioned it showing it at a movie theater like you would nowadays. Mm-hmm. That's what he wanted to.
He was right.
Ultimately do with it.
He was right. You can do it.
But the thing about the chemicals and everything like that was kind of the easy part, because they, like I said, they already had still photography, and everybody said, well, this is essentially like still photography, but a bunch of still photographs just played really fast, so it looks like to your eye that it's moving, and so that all of the same principles applied. They just had to figure out the mechanics of how to take that many pictures quickly and how to project them and things like that. So that's what he was working on. So finally, he figures out. He goes back to England. He had a workshop in Leeds, and figured out the single lens camera. And again, this looked kind of just like a big wooden box or whatever. And it actually could photograph between 12 to 20 frames per second. So like right around the 16 frame, that's what he wanted. Now, so as I mentioned before, the first movie that he made, which was just his, in-laws or his family members stuff just kind of wandering around in the yard. Because he's like, just move around. It's a moving picture. It's a new thing, which is like really funny. He actually took that on October the 14th, 1888. So that was actually, like I said, his in-laws' house. And they were all just like out in the garden. So he shot the first film with that. Like I said, you can see it on YouTube. It still exists, which is actually kind of awesome because, 1888, that was a long time ago. That was like when fucking Jack the Ripper was running around.
Damn.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Jack the Ripper's running around England, and meanwhile, Louis Le Prince is over there just like, hey, walk around so I can film you with my newfangled device. That's like kind of funny to think about, actually. But that those two things were like happening at around the same time. But yeah, so like I said, it's only a few seconds long, but come on. I mean, nobody had ever done it before, so give the guy a break. So he also, as I mentioned, made a couple other films. One of them, he was just standing on a bridge, and, it's called Traffic Crossing Leeds Bridge. It's not cars, traffic, obviously, but, just the horses and people and shit like that. And he did one of his son playing an accordion. So once he had it how he wanted it, he's like, okay, that looks pretty cool. Now I want to figure out how to project it, because that was the end goal. He wanted to like show it. He had in mind not so much entertainment style movies. He had more like kind of an education type of thing, which I guess a lot of them did back then, because nobody really knew. I don't know. I guess nobody really thought about it back then, like maybe filming a play or something like that. But he mostly wanted it for like educational purposes. But he's like, I want to be able to like project, moving pictures and like show people other parts of the world and things like that they might not be able to see, and like show it to big audiences like all at once.
Well, this is high-tech shit, so he's thinking it's going to be used for science.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
He realized all the money you could make showing a movie. That hadn't covered.
And probably like a couple years later, people's like, we can make porn with that.
Yeah, yeah, man. We'll bring these literal jerks in here, and they can fucking pay, and fucking, and we have somebody else come clean up the machine. Pay his ass to clean up the machine.
Ew.
No.
But yeah. So, as I mentioned, he did have a patent on the camera. But when he was working on the projector, and he was actually gonna get a patent for that as well. Now, apparently, according to his family at least, he had a working projector, and he had put his movies into the projector and projected them on the wall, like, of his workshop in Leeds. Unfortunately, there's, like, no proof of that, and spoiler alert, he disappeared before anything could come of it, which is really kind of a shame. But according to all his family, they said, yeah, he brought us in there and we watched the he projected it. It was successful, like it worked. So in 1890, Louis decides he's going to move back to the United States permanently. And he's going to like kind of tour around the country and have like public demonstrations of his projector, his film projector. Which, you'll note Edison and the Lumiere brothers both did that much, much later than this. But this is what Louis Le Prince was planning to do. So his wife and kids actually went out ahead of him. They had bought a mansion in New York, and they were all waiting there, and he was supposed to come out and meet them. So Louis packs up all his stuff, which was probably like a bitch back then. Man, everything... I complain about shit taking forever nowadays. Holy shit, man. It's like everything must have taken forever to do back then. Fucking horse and carriage. You had to like pack all this stuff, or then like a train, or you had to take a ship, and it was like a fucking week or some shit like that. Fuck that. But yeah. So he packs up all his stuff. Now, before he was going to go to the U.S., though, like before he was going to get on the ship, he was actually going to make a stop in Dijon, France, which is where his brother Albert lived. Now, he was visiting Albert because nothing to do with the patent stuff, because he had all of his patent paperwork, and he had all of the devices, and he had all his prototypes, and he had everything with him, because he was like, as soon as he got to the US, he was going to file the patents and work it all out. But he was going to visit Albert because their mother had died recently and had left Louis and Albert she had like a fancy townhouse in Paris that was apparently like worth a lot of money, I guess. And they were going to split it, or they were going to kind of like sort out what they were going to, you know, do with it or whatever. So he stopped by to see Albert for a couple of days, and then he was going to, you know, get on the train and then go and get on the ship and then go to the United States. So on September 16th, 1890, he went with his brother Albert to the train station in Dijon, where he was going to catch the express train to Paris and then go on to, to get the ship to go across the Atlantic. However, when the train arrived in Paris, Louis Le Prince was not on it, and neither was any of his stuff. I will note that the train was an express from Dijon to Paris and did not make any stops in between. I will also note that nobody on the train afterwards had noticed him on the train, even though, by all accounts, he probably would have stood out because he was 6'4", something like that, which was quite tall for the time. That doesn't mean that people had noticed him or would have noticed him necessarily, but it seems odd that nobody remembered him. So they don't actually know. I mean, Albert, his brother, he was the one that said, yeah, he got on the train and, you know, I waved goodbye and everything like that. And then he just vanished off the face of the earth, and neither hide nor hair of him has been found to this day. They have found nothing. They found none of his luggage. They found absolutely no trace of him whatsoever. So yeah.
He did get on the plane, though?
On the train? Yeah. See, okay, we'll get into that in a little bit, because according to his brother, he did. But we'll get into that. Okay. So yeah. All of the luggage that he had when he got on the train, that had all of his, like I said, it had all of his stuff in it. It had the projector, it had all of his inventions, it had all of his patent stuff, all of his papers that he had filed, and all of that kind of stuff. It had everything. So because he was moving to the United States, he was taking all that stuff with him.
So he had a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
That means it was removed.
Yeah, they didn't find anything.
Yeah, that's fishy.
So, well, that's why people are still talking about this story nowadays, because it's very fishy. So yeah,
he never arrived.
No, they never arrived. They never found any of the
He was
stuff.
intercepted
because his friends were waiting for him, like at the Paris train station.
Yeah.
And he never showed up. Now, they weren't alarmed at first, because they said, oh, well, maybe he missed the train, or maybe he decided to take a later one.
Got off the train.
You know, or something. So they weren't, like, all that alarmed. But then, like, as time went on and he never showed up, then obviously, you know, the family and friends, like, went into, you know, panic mode and, like, did an extensive investigation, like, reported the police. And it was kind of a pain in the ass because, you know, he lived in England, but then he was in France and he was going to the United States. So they had to keep going back and forth from, like, the English police to the French police and, like, trying to figure out what was going on. But they never, I mean, there was literally nothing of him that was found. Nothing at all. Which is crazy.
Well, I'm already imagining what you could have done. But go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And we'll get it. Okay. So, like I said, that's pretty much it. It's just kind of like he got on the train and he never arrived anywhere. If you
were going to intercept this guy, take him out and take all his stuff, you know that you're going to have a bunch of bags and his possessions taken off the train. You know that has to happen. And it has to happen before the train reaches his destination. So if you're going to take a bunch of these cases or suitcases and packages off, you can add another package to that big load and no one would know the difference. And that extra package could have his body in it.
Yeah.
That's how you would do it. Kill him on the train using your team, and then pack him into a box and get that box into the luggage car. And then have them all come off at a different destination, not at the end, at a destination that he was not going to go to. In other words, where his family was picking him up. Then all that stuff comes off. You probably just use the regular porters that do it. But then you have to collect them as if they're yours. So you have to change the paperwork on them to make it like it's a delivery. Or the person in charge of the operation becomes the new owner, and he pretends that that's his shit, and he has to take it off with his assistants. So that means this has to be done with the aid of the railroads. It's the only way.
Well, I'll note that, like I said, he got on the train in Dijon, and he was supposed to get off in Paris, but there were no stops in between. It was an express train.
Okay, but it kept on going, right?
I assume,
Yeah,
because they usually do.
It was unloaded later. It was unloaded at a different one. He didn't have to come off there before. He was down the cargo hold in a box with all the other boxes. That's how I would do it. Wouldn't you?
See, this is why like train murders always kind of like fascinate me.
I don't think you could do this without help. You'd have to have knowledge of all the train operations and the paperwork that they use, and have either fake papers made for the luggage, like little luggage tags, copies, or stolen real ones. Because you have to re-tag all that luggage. And then you have a ticket already that you bought, and then you made up that luggage with your ticket once you're in the train. And then when you get to your destination, you have all that stuff unloaded. The people unloading it are not the same people that loaded it. They don't know anything.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think you'd have to have a good knowledge of the train. In other words, somebody on your team would have had to have been an ex-employee or an active employee to help you to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you have to know. What's the tickets look like? Where do the tickets come from? Can you get to the tickets? What's the codes that have to be on there to get it to come off at the destination you want it to come off at? How do you change your ticket to say that that luggage belongs to you? It's something like that. They know the train system real well. It probably had help. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say.
Hugo said there's a Frankenstein movie made in 1910 by Edison. Yeah, I've seen it. I wonder who really made it. Yeah. It's not very good. I mean, it's okay. It's an okay adaptation. The monster looks a little silly, but I did like a big long like silent movie watch along thing like on my blog where I just kind of watched it and wrote about it like I was watching it. But I found it entertaining, but yeah. Ben said Brother Albert murdered him, loaded his stuff onto the train, and maybe pretended to be him at the ticket office. Did anyone check his ticket on the train? See, I'm assuming that nobody did because they interviewed, as far as I know, everybody that had been on the train or everybody that had worked on the train at Porter's, and nobody had seen him or nobody could remember seeing him. That doesn't mean he wasn't there. I'm just saying that nobody remembered him in particular. So
Maybe
most of the theories kind of swirl around maybe he never got on the train at all.
Or he didn't get on the train alive. Maybe he was killed in the train station and put in one of the boxes along with the other stuff that was going to go on the train. You know what I mean? And then you assume his identity, and you have him loaded into your train, into your luggage hold, as if he was your luggage. And you were the guy who killed him. You assumed his identity. That may have been that.
Yeah, possibly.
Because it'd be easier to kill him in the train station.
I would think.
Yeah. You ask him, he trusts you or something, you ask him to go somewhere with you, and then you fucking clobber him. Shoot him with a suppressed pistol, something like that. They had stuff like that back then.
Well, yeah, they offed each other all the time back in the 19th century.
And then you put him in the luggage.
Because it was much easier to get away with it.
Yeah, and then you wheel him out there in the luggage.
I mean,
check
obviously.
check him in like cargo. Then you got his ticket.
Ben said it would have been easiest to kill him by dynamiting the train.
Yeah.
It's a little overkill, though. Acceptable losses. You know what I mean?
It's obviously a covert operation. This is James Bond shit. Nobody's supposed to know this even happened, and then it vanished from the face of history. So it was a covert operation.
I mean, it definitely does seem like
yeah.
that. So, okay. So those are the facts of the case. Now, these are the theories about what may have happened to Louis Le Prince. First theory, he committed suicide. I don't buy this one. I'm not saying it's impossible because, you know,
Where's the body?
You never know. Well, that's kind of a problem with a lot of these theories is they never did find his body. You know, proponents of this say, well, maybe he never even got on the train. Maybe he just like jumped in a river somewhere. You know, maybe he did get on the train, but he jumped off. Something like that. But on the other hand, it's like, one, he wasn't like most of the, I kind of feel like most of the people who, because there have been a couple books written about this. Most of the people who put forward the suicide theory are like, oh, you know, maybe he was going bankrupt, or maybe there was like some evidence that maybe he didn't have as much money as blah, blah, blah. But honestly, like everything else that I saw said that he was actually pretty financially successful. And even if he wasn't that financially successful, he knew that he had a fucking movie camera. He knew what that was. I mean, he knew what the applications for it would be. He knew that he would probably be made very wealthy by having that and by like taking it and touring it around. So I don't think he necessarily would have checked out right before, like right on the cusp of, I'm going to the United States and I'm going to show my new machine and I'm going to get a patent and I'm going to make all this money on it. Well, no, he was getting a patent. He had a patent on the other one, on the other machine, the first one.
When did a patent for this appear in the U.S.? How much longer?
Well, guess who? Guess who did it?
Edison, probably, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and how much longer after?
After he disappeared?
Yeah.
Not all that long. Well, like I said, that's why like a lot of people think that Edison had something to do with this shit. But I don't know.
Or somebody who realized that they could make money with Edison, maybe.
Well, yeah. I mean, because
like
Edison, he wasn't just Edison. He had a lot of people like working for him.
Right?
So
Edison,
you know,
had a whole bunch of guys that would looking for guys that they could steal inventions from and sell them to Edison. He probably had a whole system of industrial spies worked out. Edison probably had a bunch of them.
I think he did, yeah.
So it was one of his industrial spies maybe had tracked this guy down in France and knock him off and steal his shit before he posts the U.S. patent. And then later you take his machine and his ideas, you have other guys look at it, and then you come up with a better patent and you put that in there.
Yeah, because he patented his kinetoscope in now I can't remember what year it was, but it was like it wasn't long after he disappeared, so it was like 1891 or something like that.
Sometimes you get a second, third, or fourth set of eyeballs on something, they'll make it even better. And they go say, well, fuck patenting that machine. This machine's taught us to make a better patent. We'll do that. You know, it might have been that. Because you also don't want to show up with a fucking patent for a carbon copy of his machine. That makes you a suspect.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
wait,
hold on. That guy's dead.
He's like, what? No, I just came up with this completely on my own.
Right.
Well, see, the thing about it, though, and I'm not excusing Edison, but I am saying that it is a fact that a lot of inventors were working on a motion picture camera at this time because of Edward Muybridge and because of, you know, all of these optical illusion toys. It was something that was very much that everybody was kind of like trying to work on it. So it's possible that you could have come up with something very similar to what he came up with just by coincidence.
Well, it's just like in the firearms field.
But when Edison is involved, I get a little bit sus about it because he's very, very well known for like ripping off other people's ideas and taking credit for them.
In this period also it was the same with firearms. Yeah, new patents would come out, amazing new firearms would come out, but guys were working on ideas like that firearm, many teams happening at the same time. That went on for a long time, even in the 30s and 40s, guys coming up with prototypes that are kind of like assault rifles. So yeah, I guess you could say there's a convergent evolution, but that's because all the designers are talking about this concept. So wouldn't be one dude talking about a motion picture camera. It'd be like 30 or 40 of them talking about motion picture cameras, all of them trying to guard their own secrets and shit.
Yeah.
So it would be like that.
And like I said,
they're going to kind of come up with the same thing, though.
Yeah, the people are going to come up with the same thing. It happens all the time.
There's only a couple ways you can do that. Make a camera. Mechanically like that.
Right. So
the most important thing is how do you drive it? Do you have to crank it? Or do you wind up a spring, like a big, you know what I mean? And it times itself? Because, see, cranking it depends on your consistency in cranking it. You know what I mean? If you speed up accidentally, you'll fuck up the image. They didn't really have they had electric motors, but they wouldn't have had the batteries and the power. It would have been big and heavy, so you couldn't have a battery-powered electric motored camera at this point. It would have been something with a wind-up spring or a crank at this point. But like I said, that's where the patents would differ. Some guys' patents might be, you sit there and you turn a key and wind it up, and you got 30 seconds of filming with a nice, consistent image. It's spinning like a clockwork on time. So there would have been a bunch of different versions of it. Edison probably would have had his fingers in all of them, any of them that he could find.
Yeah, he knew all about what was going on.
Right.
He really did keep his finger on the pulse.
On everything, right.
Because he's like, hey, whose ideas can I steal
right.
today?
Which are the best ones? And he was the kind of guy that would buy everything so no one else could get it.
Yeah.
It was just the way it is.
Yeah, that was
the smart way to do it.
Well, it certainly made him a lot of money. It fucked over everybody else, but, I guess that's like, fuck everybody, I got mine. I guess that's that attitude.
Well, there's something to be said for guys like Edison and big rich guys. They had the money and the infrastructure to make these ideas a reality. They could get that shit done and mass produce it. So technology moved quickly in the Industrial Revolution. That was one good thing about it. If it was scattered out between all these little artisan creators, the relentless march of industrial technology would have, its evolution would have been slowed down. So it was a rough period to live in, but we reaped the rewards for it. Without them, it probably would have taken another 100 years. Imagine if it was, 1920s still, That's what it would be like.
Well, we wouldn't know any different.
We wouldn't know any different. But it would be like the 1920s.
It would just be like it is,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's just like, you wouldn't know any difference. Like, oh man, it could have been like really cool. We could have had cell phones and Netflix and all this other kind of shit. We wouldn't know any different.
There was a lot of shit that almost came out in the 1930s, but the war stopped it. The world wars stopped a lot of shit. One of the things that was going to come out in the 30s was television.
Yeah.
They didn't know how to do it.
Yeah, we were watching something about that not too long ago.
But then the war broke out, and they made all that shit top secret. And they said, we'll do this after the war. And then in the meantime, television cameras became like top secret weapons technology. They were using video cameras to remotely pilot. I think they were fucking Liberator bombers loaded full of explosives that they would use as a big cruise missile and ditch it, or they would fly it right into a German weapons system and blow it up. They're trying to blow up German super weapons with it. That damn rocket mortar that they were building. And what was his name? One of the Kennedys got killed flying that thing because you needed somebody on board. I think it was JFK's brother. He was in the war.
Yeah.
You had to have somebody pilot it to take off. And then once it was in air, you armed the bombs, and then you jumped out and came out on a parachute. And then the guys back at base were looking through cameras and flying the airplane remotely through cameras. Well, JFK he got it up in the air, went to his jump off point because this is it. Okay, he went to go switch to arm the bomb. The thing just blew up. He was vaporized. There's tons of ammunition went off. Somebody wired it wrong.
Shit happens.
Would suck, yeah. Would suck.
I mean,
But that was a top secret mission. And it was funny that the Kennedys were involved in it.
Dave is here. Hey, you two. Just pooping in to say hello. I guess he went popping
He's pooping in?
He's pooping in to say hello. Ben says, Hedy Lamarr invented a wireless remote system for submarine torpedoes. Yes, that's true. She did. And I actually I've been wanting to do a show on her for a while, too, because I think Zach was recommended that. And I was like, yeah, that would actually be a good show as well. Sebastian says, Germany had TVs. Well, some people, I mean. And then Zach said, during the Great Depression era, there were a few films that were actually shot in widescreen on 70mm film, but it was expensive, so they stopped doing it until the 1950s. That's another thing, too, is that a lot of times I think the technology for something exists, but I guess sometimes it's just like too cost prohibitive to like use it until there's like, until it gets cheaper.
The Germans were also working on a space plane that was like this, kind of like a space shuttle. It was called the Sanger Antipodal Bomber. And you launched, it was a big rocket sled that pushed this pretty cool looking space plane across several miles of damn raised concrete launch rail. And then it was the big sled had like 20 or 30 V2 rocket engines in it. And they would get this thing up to supposedly high Mach, and it would get near escape velocity, and it would skip across the top of the Earth's atmosphere, go over New York, and they were going to drop a radioactive dirty bomb, which was, they had a bunch of radioactive silicate that they were using from their heavy water project, and they were going to drop that thing over New York and try to paralyze New York because that's what they were using as a port to ship all the stuff out. It wouldn't have probably worked. I think New Yorkers probably wouldn't have known what radioactive silicate was and said, oh, fuck it, get back to work. And a lot of them would have died of cancer. But the war effort would have continued. I don't think they would have stopped because somebody dropped silicate on them. But it was an amazing plane. I'm not sure it would have worked. Different guys have crunched the numbers and seen there wasn't enough thrust. Other guys have said, no, it probably would have worked. But that's damn near a space shuttle, in the 40s. That's pretty good, man.
Yeah, I think they came up with shit. Like I said, I think they came up with shit a lot earlier than maybe we imagine. I think the problem mostly is not so much the inventing of it, because the principle of it is there, but how to mass produce it, how to make it so it's not cost prohibitive. I think that's kind of like the main hurdle that you have to overcome most of the time. Yeah,
they were working on it, but they were working on it in France. D-Day happened and they had to stop production. Although I think they killed production right before D-Day anyway. I think they were running out of money. Like you said, cost prohibitive.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So the first theory was that he actually just jumped off the train or disappeared himself, willingly, and went and killed himself somewhere. I'm not entirely buying that. Like I said, I just don't think that he would have done that at that period in time. I've also heard another theory, which I don't think I buy this one either. But apparently somebody somewhere found a little note in a library someplace that he had actually died in Chicago in 1897, I think, something like that, like 6 or 7 years after he supposedly disappeared, and that he had voluntarily gone into hiding because his family asked him to because he was gay. And I'm like,
no,
I'm not really buying that either.
No.
I just kind of feel like, I don't know, I kind of feel like because of all of the inventions and everything like that, and he thought he was going to make a lot of money. It was like his wife knew about it and everything like that. And I kind of feel like he would have wanted them, if he was going to fake his death, for example, he would have wanted his family, he had a wife and kids, he would have wanted his family to benefit from his inventions, I would have thought. So it would seem kind of shitty for him to disappear. I don't know, I didn't know the guy, but he didn't really.
What year was this again?
1890s.
And this is Europe. No, it wasn't because he's gay. There was a lot of gay stuff, man.
It was illegal, obviously, and they'd put you in jail if they caught you, because Oscar Wilde went to jail.
Yeah, but there was a lot of it, and people knew about it, and people protected family members and stuff. You know what I mean? They just didn't say anything. Kept
and the
it
thing
quiet.
about it is, I don't even know. There's no evidence that he actually even was gay, and even if he was, it's I just feel like that's not a good enough excuse for him to just
no.
disappear himself,
'Cause there were
fake his death or whatever.
There were a lot of gay people, and they didn't, come to an ill, what's a good way to put it? They didn't just come up missing, and their families didn't fuck with them that bad, especially if they were rich. It probably was harder for a poor person. Rich people were more tolerant of that kind of stuff.
Well, it's always harder for a poor person then and now. You know what I mean?
Rich people tend to be more sophisticated. They're like, oh well, yeah, do your thing. Because rich people were not really fucking in any danger of having anybody look down on them. They were dead.
Right? They're
rich.
like, I got money.
They're
Fuck
rich.
you.
They had fuck you money.
Right.
They'd fuck you.
Well, that's the thing. You have fuck you money. You can do whatever the fuck you want because
Right.
it's like, what's anybody going to say to you? Just like, bye.
Yeah.
You don't have anything to lose, really. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like somebody's going to come in and you're fired. You're going to, like, you know, be sleeping on a bench or something like that. It's like, that's not going to happen to them. So they're not, like, really worried about it. So, yeah. So I'm not buying suicide and I'm not buying faking his own death for various reasons. I'm not really buying it. So I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying I don't buy it.
It's unlikely.
Another theory that I think Ben alluded to earlier was that his brother Albert killed him. Now, notably, Albert was the last person to see him alive. He did say that he took him to the train station, and notably, he was the only person that said that he, for sure, saw him get on that train, even though he wasn't on that train, presumably. So, I don't know. See, that's the thing. I don't want to, like I said, it was, you know, they're all dead now, but the family did absolutely not believe. They're like, Albert wouldn't have done that. He didn't have a motive. Because I think a lot of people said, because remember how I said their mom had died and like left them that house and stuff? But both Albert and Louis were, as far as I know, were pretty financially successful. They weren't desperate. They didn't need the money. And even if Albert had bumped off Louis's share of the house would have gone to his wife and kids, not to Albert. So there really wasn't any reason for him necessarily, unless Albert thought, ooh, he's got that invention, and if I patent that shit, then, I mean, that's possible. But I don't know. Like, the family were like, they had a really good relationship. There was really no reason for him to kill him, but I don't know. It is slightly suspicious that really we only have Albert's word for it, as far as I know, that he got on that train. Because he apparently was not. He either didn't get on that train, or he got off somewhere. It's like, and no one noticed him, and he got off somewhere, like he jumped off, or he was killed on the train somewhere, and like nobody noticed because he for sure did not get off of it.
I think he was killed and then put on the train.
Maybe
in a box with the luggage, and then when they got to their destination where they were steal his luggage, they loaded him off with the rest of the luggage.
Yeah,
that's probably what happened. I think it was a team of people. It just sounds suspicious. This isn't the work of one man.
Well, and
even if it's a dude killing himself, he can't dispose of his own body. It's not the work of one man.
Yeah, because notably they never found the body.
Right. That's the big giveaway right there.
Now, see, this is where the Thomas Edison stuff comes in.
Yeah.
Nobody is saying, well, as far as I know, nobody is saying that Thomas Edison himself went there and killed the dude.
I got a cop I grew up with in here, man. He's got investigative techniques. Fucking grafters. If there's no body in a situation like this, that's the work of a team, isn't it? A man can't dispose of his own body. And if he took himself to another location to kill himself, you'd find the body eventually there, too. He didn't kill himself. That's unlikely. And he was murdered. And I'm saying, because the evidence of the body wasn't left behind and there's no luggage and shit, it was done by a team.
I'm kind of leaning toward it. Like I said, I don't know about Edison, but it is notable that Thomas Edison did indeed patent his, what is it called? Kinetoscope, kinetogram, whatever, graph or whatever it was called. Really not that long after Louis Le Prince's disappearance.
Was it the exact same design?
Almost.
It
was very, very similar. Now, he did know, obviously, he had eyes everywhere, so he knew that Louis Le Prince was working on that shit. The thing about it, I don't know. I'm kind of two minds about this, because on the one hand, Thomas Edison is very well known for stealing other people's ideas and like taking credit for it, and kind of strong-arming, not necessarily killing or beating up or anything like that, but he did have what they called a goon squad that would kind of go and intimidate people into like selling the rights to their stuff and things like that. And like I said, he would also use the legal system kind of like a bludgeon, in the broader sense, just so he could make more money for his own self.
In modern terminology, this would be fucking private security or industrial spies. Industrial agents.
This was definitely, and it's not crazy. I mean, it does. I mean, shit, like I said, if you have History Channel or if you have Hulu, because it's on there now.
Shit's been going on.
Even watch The Food That Built America or whatever it is. There's like 2 or 3 seasons of it. And some of that shit, even if it was just like with cornflakes or donuts or some shit, like that shit got ugly. Like sometimes when they were like competing for different, because it's money, and if big money is involved and you have a good idea and you're afraid somebody else is going to take it, then yeah, people will do some extreme shit.
Howard Hughes had a security agency working underneath him that he created, and they were fucking loyal to the damn death, and they were all staffed by Mormons. And they were they were the best intelligence agency in the world with the highest level of technology. The CIA and the FBI did everything they could to catch up with Hughes's technology. And a lot of the stuff that the FBI did was a copy of what Hughes was doing, Howard Hughes. And he had this sophisticated intelligence apparatus. And strangely enough, the way Howard Hughes was, the purpose of this intelligence agency, this private intelligence agency, was to keep an eye on all his girlfriends. That's some shit, man. Make sure that bitch ain't cheating on me. Where is she? That kind of stuff. Ain't that something?
It's something, all right.
Yeah. He was a collector of women that he didn't sleep with. It's weird.
But they're not allowed to go sleep with other people, even though he's not.
No, he's just collecting them. He'd collect all these little starlets and put them in these fucking hotels, and then just have spies watch them, and not even make movies with them. And then the second then the second he got reports back, yeah, she's got a boyfriend, she's fired. He was mentally ill. He had a bunch of mental.
Well, yeah, obviously.
We did a show.
We did do a show about Howard Hughes, didn't we?
Multiple head injuries.
He's a fascinating character, but
multiple head injuries, OCD.
Man, he had some problems.
Yeah,
big time. But he was insulated from it quite a bit because of all the money he had, obviously. So that's what happens when you have a shit ton of money.
When you can live in your own movie theater for a year and just be there naked, pissing in a bottle, and talking to people on the telephone,
pooping in jars and whatnot,
fucking watching movies 24 hours a day and sleeping in there, then that's
See, if you were poor, you'd be on Hoarders.
Yeah. Exactly.
And they would take you away and put you in. The cops would take you away.
Yeah.
But you're rich, you're just allowed.
Yeah.
Oh, he's just eccentric.
He lived in that opulent theater for a year. Didn't want anybody to see him.
Well, I'm sure probably nobody wanted to see him because he looked like pooping in jars and walking around naked with big old long fingernails and shit.
I don't think he was.
Well, he's pooping somewhere.
He was pissing in the jars. He wasn't He wasn't shitting in the jars. I read the book.
He's probably just shitting on the floor.
Now, I think there was a bathroom, but that he would go to, but he didn't want to go to it to take a piss though. He would just piss in his milk bottles. He'd drink milk and he'd piss it back into the bottle.
Did he ever drink any of the pee
accidentally?
accidentally?
And then he would line it up when it had.
Piss that happened.
When it had piss in it, he would line it up on the outside of the aisle, of the extreme right of the aisle, so his servants could come in there and pick it up.
Bet they loved that. Bet that was their favorite day of the work week. Oh boy, it's pee bottle day.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hughes was a good man, though. I don't maybe think he was not a bad man. He had a lot of head injuries from motorcycle.
Well,
wrecks,
yeah, it wasn't his fault necessarily because some of it was his fault because he did do all that daredevil shit, and that's kind of his own fault.
And well, another thing is every time he'd wreck an airplane and get a fucking head injury, he would fucking have his fucking henchmen pull him out of the hospital. He would refuse treatment over and over and over again.
Yeah, so that probably doesn't
that
help.
was really part of what it was. He was real headstrong.
Yeah, that doesn't always work out in your favor. Well, yeah, but it's he probably didn't have his skull was in there just kind of rattling around and shit like fucking loose puzzle pieces, But yeah, so the thing about it, like I said, Thomas Edison, he did have a history of doing this kind of thing, not necessarily killing people, but having kind of a team of goons that would go intimidate people. So it's also, I think that there was a witness account of, I guess, one of the lawyers that was supposed to, represent Louis Le Prince, when he was going to do the patent, because he was coming over to do it, was talking to Edison, was seen talking to Edison at some point, or later went to work for Edison. So I think people are thinking that maybe Thomas Edison, if he didn't, maybe he didn't say oh, go kill that dude or make him disappear, which he did. I mean, that worked, but I don't know if he actually had a hand in that, or if he just was woohoo, if he just, it happened other than without his influence, and then he just took advantage of it. It does seem that Thomas Edison, for sure, was the person who stood to benefit the most from him disappearing. Now, on the other hand, there were other people, as I mentioned, it was very much in the zeitgeist at the time of people working on motion picture cameras. So it's not too crazy to think that other people might have been working on a similar thing. And maybe, he wouldn't have been too concerned about, oh, this guy just has another one. But like you said, maybe he had industrial spies. Maybe one of the lawyers that had been working with Louis Le Prince was secretly working for Edison, or like went behind his back and went to Edison and told him, hey, he's doing this, that, and the other. And then Thomas Edison's like, ooh, I want that shit. And then like they worked that out. It's not crazy. Like I said, the industrialists back then did do this kind of shit. So, Thomas Edison, he's dead. And like I said, he can't sue me. But it's, his ghost can sue me. Yeah. But it's far-fetched, but probably not as far-fetched as it would have been if you were talking about somebody else. You know what I'm saying?
He had the power.
That's what I mean. He had the means, and he for sure had a motive. And not too long after Louis Le Prince disappeared, he did patent a movie camera and went around the country like projecting and stuff, projecting movies with it. And it was almost exactly like the one that Louis Le Prince was gonna do. So, make of that what you will. I'm not really sure. I don't know. Maybe it just happened that Louis Le Prince disappeared under different, completely random circumstances, and Thomas Edison just took advantage of that shit, because he would have. But I don't know. The timing of it just seems a little suspicious to me. That's all I'm saying. Now, there's also another possibility, which it's weird because I kind of feel like a lot of people bring up the suicide thing, the went into hiding because he was gay thing, the brother killing him thing, and Edison killing him thing. But a lot of people don't seem to point out that it's possible that he could have just been the victim of just a random ass crime. One theory that I did see put forward because this isn't mentioned on a lot of things, but I did see somebody like point this out. They said what could have happened was that for whatever reason, maybe Albert did take him to the station and did see him like appear to get on the train or look like he was getting on the train. But then maybe after Albert left, Louis was just kind of like, oh shit, I forgot something, or I think I'm going to take a later train, like for whatever reason. They're like, it's possible that he could have gotten off that train. Albert didn't see him get off the train. And then he took a later one. And when he was on the later train, he might have been attacked by just a random person. Like he could have just been the random victim of a crime.
And what happened to his luggage?
That's what I was going to say. That's the only thing. Yeah. Because it did happen. Like people did get robbed and shit like that. But he apparently did have a lot of luggage with him. So it would have, like you said, it would have had to be a gang of robbers, and maybe they didn't know. Yeah. So, and that's the thing, like, why would they have attacked him specifically unless he was just like a random victim? It does seem like
industrial espionage.
It does seem like that. I mean, I know it sounds kind of crazy, but that does really seem like, I mean,
he had a valuable invention.
It also sounds it's possible, too, that his brother could have done it, okay? Because it is a little bit suspicious that we only have his brother's word for it, that, yeah, he did get on that train. Because nobody else saw him.
That's a good possibility, though, too. Maybe his brother killed him before he even got to the fucking train station.
That's what I mean. And said, yeah, I totally saw him get on the train. It's like, and like I said, I don't know, because the family was like, no, absolutely not. Like, he wouldn't have done that. But, and they knew him, so I guess they know better than me.
And he wouldn't have had a motive.
But... Yeah, but now the motive, maybe though, like I mentioned earlier, it might not have had to do with the mom's estate, because like I said, he wouldn't have got the money anyway if his brother had died, like the wife and the kid would have got it. But maybe he wanted to take advantage of the inventions himself because he knew that it was going to make a lot of money.
Unlikely.
But like I said, I don't know. I just feel like that.
How could he have played that off?
Right.
And why?
That's his brother.
He's like,
and they were apparently really close.
By the way, he's gone, so I'm going to pick up his work on this fucking camera. And this dude didn't sound like he knew anything about cameras.
And the thing about it was that the family, as it ended up, the family didn't benefit because he disappeared. They didn't find his body, so they had to wait 7 years to declare him dead before they could do anything with his patents or his inventions. And by that time, it was way too late. Because Edison had already done that shit.
Edison would have had enough lawyers They would have had the foresight too, saying, "Well, if he comes up missing, it'd be 7 years before they can do anything anyway."
That's what makes me suspicious is that had it been another thing, had his brother done it, or had, if his brother had, just hypothetically, if his brother had done it to take over his inventions, he would have made sure the body was found, because it's like, well, you want the body to be found so that you know that he's dead, so that like you can have access to his stuff, because it's like if he wasn't found, which is what ended up happening, then they had a law. There was like I don't think this is on the books anymore, but they had a law where it's like, oh, if you had filed a patent or blah, 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 like the family members couldn't use that patent until 7 years had passed, like if the person had disappeared, like after they were declared dead. So nobody in the family got shit from him just disappearing. So I kind of feel like that sort of takes the air out of that motive, because they didn't get any benefit from it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that, and anything else like suicide or even like just a random gang of robbers, you'd think that they would have found the body, because the thing about it was, let's just say, again, hypothetically, which I don't think was the case, but let's just say he decided, I'm just going to end it all, and he jumped off the train. Well, the train, it was an express train, it was regular service, you know what I mean? It was a regular route, and they looked all along that route. They looked in the train, they looked all over the place. They didn't find anything. So I just kind of feel like they would have found his body eventually if someone didn't kind of like disappear him on purpose.
He was disappeared on purpose.
I mean,
by a team of dudes. It's the only
I
explanation.
feel like.
Yeah. No, I don't know.
Because it's kind of hard to get rid of a body. Not that I would know firsthand or anything.
I would say something like Edison's fucking intelligence agencies may have done something like that. His industrial agencies may have done something like that. Whether or not he gave the order to do it, I don't know. Might have been somebody rogue in there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We could say that it's still industrial espionage, but it might not have been Edison.
Yeah, might have been somebody else.
It might have been somebody else trying to take advantage of it.
Somebody in Edison's outfit just doing it on their own.
Doing it on their own.
The boss will like that. I'm going to take this guy.
That's another possibility.
I'll get rewarded, and fucking then the boss won't know how I even got it done. That kind of shit.
Yeah, he's like, oh, that guy just, I don't know,
Yeah, look what I got. Don't ask any questions, boss.
Right.
He's like, okay.
And Edison was the type of guy who'd be like, okay,
yeah.
I'm not looking to gift horse in the mouth.
Right.
Or the world's first movie
Could
projector.
have been something like that. And then Edison goes, well, I'm going to make sure you get your bonus this year, that kind of shit.
Ben said, and actually I thought of this too, said they might have argued about him and his brother, about him moving to America. French are very passionate, that's true. They could have fought and got killed accidentally, and then the brother panicked and loaded the luggage and buried the body. That's also another possibility. I was thinking about that earlier, like when I was watching a documentary about it, and that's another theory that I don't see brought up that much. It is possible that the brother might have killed him, but just like accidentally, like I said, just in the course of an argument or something, and then he freaked out and hid it. But it just does seem like...
What's most likely, though?
Well, see, I'm kind of thinking...
See, I'm thinking that the espionage...
Industrial espionage, whether it was Edison or not, because... A lot of people knew that he was working on that shit. A lot of people knew that he was the first. Back then, they knew. And then, sadly, the knowledge was lost. But we're trying to kind of, It's trying to kind of come back out nowadays, which is good, because I feel really bad for this dude.
There's a means and motive there,
Yeah, and Edison, for sure, benefited from the disappearance. Big time. I mean, he didn't even wait. I don't even think it was a year. It might not even have been a year.
There's not going to be any way to know. It could have been, like you said, the brother killed him by accident and then hit it. We're just talking about likelihood. You know what I mean? That may have happened, but I think it's less likely.
Yeah.
More likely industrial espionage.
It's just the lack of the body and and there being no trace of any of the luggage.
Yeah. See, people kill people all the time and they get caught.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, I don't know. I don't know where that dude is. I took him to the train station. And they said, well, the luggage isn't there. And then they just keep digging and digging. And I did it,
Eventually they're going to find out.
And then, he hid the body on a certain route. Or he tried to hide it out in the damn farmer's field somewhere. Well, guess what? There's a farmer. And he finds it. You know what I mean? They'd have found the body, most likely.
Yeah, even back then,
especially in that era, they didn't have ATVs and vehicles that could cross, that could cross country too well. So he couldn't have hid if he tried to hide that body using a motor car. It would have been pretty close to a road, and he would have had to have a shovel and time and to dig a hole. And I just don't think so, man. No.
Yeah, I'm not really.
And the
I don't
families
really
were like, "No way is he a suspect." They're probably right. They would know more than us.
Yeah, and that's, I don't know.
The likelihood all starts going towards industrial espionage.
Yeah.
I think so.
I mean, that's kind of what I'm leaning more toward.
He disappeared and so did the luggage. He must have not gotten on the train. Or no, the brother said he got on the train.
The brother said he got on the train. But it's possible, like I said, that he could have gotten off the train after the brother left the train station, for example.
Maybe.
That could have happened.
But if it was industrial espionage, they knew he was going on a train, and maybe they knew what time he'd be leaving. Or the team waits until he shows up, and then they board at the same time that he's going to board. And then they have this whole plan where they're going to kill him, put him in a damn box, or a fucking some luggage.
Maybe they were like waiting for him on the train, and like that's why nobody really saw him.
Yeah, and they all have tickets, and then they have a way to change the luggage. Or they take his ticket and use his ticket to collect his luggage, and he's in his luggage
right
now. You know what I mean? So that's how you get him off the train. And maybe you've already bribed somebody in the railroad because he's a friend of Edison. You know, something like that.
Yeah,
Edison might own that railroad.
We're making Edison sound like Spectre.
Yeah. Well, no, some of those were oligarchs, and they owned all kinds of shit.
That's what I mean. It's like they were kind of like on a smaller scale. Like they had a lot of money, and they had a lot of like Confederates.
Hughes owned so much stuff. Hughes wasn't sure what he owned. Hughes went one day in one of the biographies I wrote of him. It was written by his right-hand man, who's one of the security guys. I forgot what his name was. He just called him Boss. And Boss Man was flipping out about some company that was coming up with some new sensors that would have fucking done something about missile guidance. And he says, we have to stop this company at all fucking costs. And they're doing this investigations. They're trying to figure out who this company is. And then later they find out, well, wait a minute, we own a company that owns a company that owns a company that owns that company. That's your company, boss. He goes, oh, okay.
It's like we just assume you own everything.
Yeah.
Okay, just that's the starting point. Yes, you own that.
Yeah, he owned it. He said, oh, okay. And he chilled out. It took him a couple days to figure out that they owned it because it was part of some conglomerations that were owned. Because he had twisted his empire into a knot to avoid a bunch of legal problems and to help evade taxes and shit like that. He wasn't sure what he owned. It was running on autopilot and just growing without him even... He just had put good bosses and shit in charge of these companies, and they ran shit real well, and they would just grow and grow and buy other companies and with company money. And even the FBI wasn't sure how big Hughes's empire was. It was big.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
He owned shit he didn't know he owned.
I could see that happening once your company got big enough. I mean, shit. If any of you guys watch, there's a really good YouTube channel called Company Man, where he talks about, he just does like 12, 15-minute videos about different companies. And some of the companies in there, he does a series that's called like Bigger Than You Know or something like that. And he talks about these kind of big, usually food conglomerates, but not always, that own fuck tons of like different brands that you weren't even aware were like all owned by the same company. And every time I see that, I always think to myself, man, what a clusterfuck that paperwork must be. Because it's just like, here's this big company, and then we own 50 bajillion little companies with like all these 50 bajillion different brands. Like every single thing, they each have their own employees, and they have their marketing team, and they have. It's just like, Jesus Christ. It's just like it makes my head hurt thinking about it. Yeah. Like all of how complex it is. But yeah, okay, so here's another little factoid. So apparently in 2003, a photograph was uncovered from the Paris photo archives, the police archives. This photo was of an unidentified drowning victim from around this time period. I have seen the photo. And I will admit, it does look like Louis Le Prince. They pulled it out of the Seine, I believe. However, some sources I've said the height was different. Because remember I said Louis Le Prince was pretty tall. Like, he was 6'3", 6'4", something like that. Like, unusually tall for the time.
For that time, that's weird.
So, yeah, he was super tall. So, this victim was apparently significantly shorter than that. But really, the photo is just of his face. And, you know, he's dead and, like, he drowned and stuff, so it's kind of hard. But he does kind of look like him, so I get it. But the weird thing about that is that even if that was Louis Le Prince, they found him in Paris. He left from Dijon. Like, so how did he get to Paris? Because nobody saw him on the train. You know what I'm saying? There's that. And also, like, if somebody killed, like, did somebody drown him? But like I said, it's probably not him because of the height difference, although I will admit that the face does look very much like him, but it's kind of hard to tell because he's dead. You know what I mean? Because there are some pictures of Louis Le Prince. You know, there was a couple when he was younger, and there was one when he was older, like not too long before he died. But I don't know. So I'm pretty sure that that's not him, even though it does resemble him, because even if it was him, it opens up a whole other possibility, like how the hell did he even get to Paris in the first place? Like, because he wasn't on the train, like, that not anybody saw. Like, he didn't get off at the station or anything. So nobody knows how he could have been there. So that just could have been a random guy. They don't know who that guy is. All right, so we've determined that Thomas Edison is probably a murderer. And, I mean, maybe not. I don't know. It sounds crazy when you say it like that, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if that's true. It's like a million different things could have happened. But I'm just saying that industrial espionage, whether Edison was behind it or not, I think was probably...
It's likely.
Because it seems... The timing just seems so straight. It's like, I'm going to America, and I have this new fangled thing. It's a movie camera, and I'm going to show it to everybody and get the patent, and I'm going to make all this money. And then suddenly he suspiciously disappears, and they never find his body, and they never find any of his stuff, and they just like, that just seems a little odd to me.
Yeah, doesn't necessarily mean it was Edison or he knew anything about it. It might have been private contractors that sold shit to companies.
Right.
You know, they just did shit on their own. Might have been a French fucking industrial espionage.
Yeah, it could have been anybody. It could have been anybody.
Hey, he's going to go to America and give them this patent. We can't have that.
That's another possibility. See, like, that's what I mean. It didn't necessarily have to be Edison. It could have been...
And it might have been some French film company or some French company.
Like, we want that shit.
We want that, right. It might have been something like that.
Sure.
And, you know, France will have the first, you know, camera. You know, it might have been something like that.
Yeah.
And there might have, for all you know, it had the French fucking oligarchs and people inside the government like, that's right, yeah, we're not going to let that go to America. So it could have been that. You don't know. But I would say espionage. Industrial espionage.
Yeah, I mean, that, like I said, that seems like the most beneficial on the part of whoever disappeared him.
It would have to have been done by a team, so that just means espionage.
But yeah, so anyway, it's like I'm just really glad that now, even though Louis Le Prince is probably like, he's not a household name like Thomas Edison is, obviously, but I kind of feel like knowledge about him is kind of slowly seeping into the culture, and that makes me happy because it just, I don't know why, but this, like, well, I do know why, but it just bummed me out so much that he's like, he invented the first movie camera, like, a significant amount of time before Edison claimed credit for it. He was making movies in 1888 when Jack the Ripper was running around. He was filming his little family, like, out this, like, that's amazing. And it, you know, and it sucks that he didn't get any credit for it. And he just fucking disappeared off the face of the earth. And then everyone just kind of forgot about him. Like, until recently. So, I mean, I kind of hope if there's an afterlife or something, he's looking down going, oh, hey, I'm not forgotten after all. Because, man, that's really shitty. That's really shitty. To, like, invent something that is so ubiquitous and, like, so important to, like, the world culture at large. And, like, you don't get any credit for it. Like, some other motherfucker, like, took credit for it. And you just ended up, like, completely forgotten about. That's, like, really a bummer. But, yeah. All right, so I guess we're going to wrap it up because it's 9 o'clock and I'm getting sleepy.
Yeah.
And I got some shit to do before I go to bed again, like always. But yeah, so thanks everybody for dropping by this evening. Hopefully you found this show as interesting as I did. I
We'll
found
be
this
back
was
Friday.
a very interesting show. Yeah. Yeah, we'll be back for Friday. We're going to do the sidetrack show on Friday night like normal, because I don't think we're going out on Friday, are we?
Maybe not.
Maybe not. We don't know.
Yeah.
But we'll definitely do a show on Friday night like we usually do. So hopefully you guys can join us for that. We can talk about all kind of fun stuff and have some more drinks, because I want to get up and go to work in the morning. But yeah, so remember to like and share and comment and all that good stuff for the algorithm. And we'll see you guys again on Friday night. Good night.